Yo, what is going on, guys? This is Cyberhorn92 here. I'm here with Boro, team inspector. And what did you do at this Richmond YCS?
Went undefeated in Swiss with Mikanko, and well, scrubbed on top 32, but still made it.
Yeah, congrats. And what made you play Mikanko than other decks? Just curious.
I generally play fusion and ritual.
Okay.
I generally play fusion and ritual decks, so it was either between this and Tier, and I didn't quite feel comfortable with Tier.
Okay. And before getting into this video, do you want to give any shout outs?
Shout out to Dream Wizards in Rockville, Maryland, my locals of choice, and all the people in there.
All right, ready when you are, man.
Okay, so here's the main deck. Monsters is very similar to the list in that talked in Bolivia. So, but there are some changes. So there's the standard, there's the 3 Ohime, you have to run 3. There is 2 Hare and 2 Huli. So I know the list in Bolivia ran 1 Huli, and while it's understandable, I don't quite agree with it because the problem is you go through at least two of these 4 in the first turn, and if you cannot lock them, like the Asagom lock gets broken very consistently, you run out of gas for error best, which is your best removal. So generally I will like put another copy in there, so just so I don't run out of gas. So those are the Mikanko monsters. So then 2 Gen and 2 Ken. Basically, it's there to set up the Asagom lock, but it's also there because one, they force interaction with places to thrust and talents, and they also. So one of the problems with Mikanko is that they have a lot of cards in the deck that you straight up do not want to draw. So you need ways to exchange them for other cards, and these and Ken and Gen specifically lets you cycle through your deck and get the dead draws out of your hand with Ken. Then 2 Ash Blossom. I was debating whether or not I want to run more hand traps in this deck. So Ash Blossom, the format's way too wide. I think I played 9 decks in Swiss out of 11 rounds. So it's a very wide format, and Ash just covers most of it. There's like, I was thinking about putting Nib in this deck instead, but Nib, some decks die to it, some decks don't. While Ash usually at least has some sort of coverage. 1 DL Star from the DL Star engine. These are the level 1 Fire Warrior extenders that you get either from DL Star, or sometimes you sum them off as sold. So basically, Fireflint Lady, best one to draw. Renaud gets back your equip spells. So basically, like a lot of the time, when they read Marawashi, which is the one that revives from the grave and attaches itself, they SP it and get it out. And this is one of the few ways you can actually get it back. So that's the monster lineup. So spell lineup. So this deck is obviously very spell heavy. There's the simple spoils portion of the engine, standard ratios. Compared to Bolivia, I ran only 2 thrusts and 1 talent. The reason being that there's a problem where like imperm is one of the most common hand traps, and since I did not want to be in a situation where I normal summon again, they impermed it, and I'm left with multiples of these in the hand. Because there are a lot of players that are just like thrust or talent shy. They do not want to play into it. So, and if they're aware of the list, they know this is probably pretty popular, so they're going to try to not play into it if possible. So they'll just imperm and let the rest of it go. So these will if I ran too many of these, I'll draw too many of them and they'll be dead. 2 prep instead of 3. Space issues. This deck's already 42, and also this is droll food. That is the thing. This deck dies to droll a lot of the times. The stuff that's really different is super poly. So this deck, if it goes off, it gains a lot of like worthless advantage. Like if you add like another Fireflint Lady off a sold, or if you bounce the Ken or Genny summon to their side of the field to your hand, it's just there. So you need to find ways to, and also like the equips of like Mario Washi that you want in the grave. You need to find ways to get that stuff out of your hand or convert it to meaningful advantage. And right now, at this moment in the format, a lot of fields are super pliable. This card is not good in the vast majority of decks because they simply do not have the extra deck space to actually cover most of the matchups. But it's this deck, Chimera, and there was one Brandon deck that was undefeated at in round 8 that faced that can run this card. And basically, once you see that deck, you'll see what Super Ball can do. Then there's the Mikanko cards. One ceremony. You don't want to draw it most of the time, so it's just put at 1, but you sometimes need it. One Kagura. So Kagura, I initially did not want to run it, but the thing is, this is actually a very good time card because it pops. It's not a monster effect, so if I face Lab and they put out Skill Drain, I can pop their back row. It's not targeting. It burns for 1k for every card pops, and it pops up to the number of equipped spells with different names in my grave. So I believe round 1, when the time was against Dragon Link, game 3, he hot redded the field for 2k, and then it went to my turn. I Kagura his field for 3k. So this is partially as a way to out back row decks, and partially as that don't clear anti-spell fragrance. We'll get back to that, and partially as a way to not die at the time. Then there's the other equipped spells. One Rondo, it comes up. Fire Dance is the extender. Drendel searches most of the Fire Warriors. Arawashi, you only want 1. It gets crowed and SP'd a lot, but you really do not want to draw it. Arabesque is your starter and removal. This is a board breaker / extender if you actually get Ken again to go off. And Rhoda because, well, you got a lot of warriors. And then the one trap, Spirit Walk. I was thinking, I really wanted to run both Spirit Walk and Rivalry. Rivalry is the one that attaches the equip spell. The problem is this deck's already 42. It's pretty large. And both the trap cards are cards you do not want to draw. So I had to make the choice to cut it.
Would you change anything about your list for this event at all?
The main deck, I would probably think about cutting Change of Heart at least. It comes up, but a lot of the time it's like not decisive. Like for example, against Unchained, you try to change the heart, the Kaisar, and they'll just Shamar it. So same thing with SP boards. You try to change the card SP, it dodges. It's basically a lot of the time in this format, targeted like taking just does not work. So that's the main deck. There is the standard. It's old. Gets your breaks out of the deck. Summons a warrior. Hot raise a warrior. Does whatever. SP. Self-explanatory. There's sort of the access code package. So this will come out of the Charmers. So Charmers into Celine, and Diablo Star is a spellcaster. So this is one of those ways you could try to OTK, because if you play Mikanko Master Duel, sometimes they just choose to not interact with you at all. So, and maybe they just leave a hand trap in the grave. So this is one of those ways to force interaction or try to OTK yourself. Then there's Appaloosa, if I have it. This comes up against tier sometimes. So if you get the Talents Rip, you can look at your hand. Sometimes you can end on this because you know that they cannot play through it. And then there's basically, we know what it is. It's the asset lock. It's the asset lock. So Geonator, Geonator, you don't always have to give them assets. So the purpose of Geonator is to make sure that they have something on the field, so they cannot Lightning Storm me, they cannot hit me with evenly matched. It does not necessarily have to be asset goal. They just need to have something so they cannot blow you out with anything other than Feather Duster. Acid Golem, it bricks certain decks, but other decks it does nothing. So for example, like against Unchained, they just tribute over it. Against Dragon Link, they just tribute summon the Bestial over it. So it's not always a full lock. Against certain decks it is, but the purpose of it, even if it's not full lock, is to force them to commit something weird, like give up their normal summon. Like for Unchained, this turns off Tour Guide, because they will have to commit something else. And then there's Herald the Arclight, because you're running Renan. This, if you have Protect Monster Removal behind it, FTK's tier. I had a game where this was on the board and they activated King Sarcophagus, and you cannot activate King Sarcophagus. You cannot use King Sarcophagus on this, because while this is on the board, it has a floodgate effect. Monsters sent from the hand or the main deck to the grave get banished. So it basically blanks that. And then this is the Super Poly lineup. So most people are probably familiar with these three, because these three were all over tier format. So Guilty Gearfried requires 2 warriors with different attributes. So SP's a warrior, it's dark. Roan's a warrior, it's wind. And also, again, so there's also a lot of warriors in this deck. You have fire warriors, and these are light warriors. So this is a way. So if you have Super Poly, this is a way for you to try to dodge interaction, because SP boards are so common. And also it really just like pushes Rescue Ace, because it has an effect where it can negate effects that target it and negate it and then destroy card they control. So if Rescue Ace ends on something like SP plus one of their fire warriors, you can clear their board. SP does not get to do anything, and it can put in and it trades with two of their traps. Then you're free to do whatever you want. Draco Kiste is, I believe, 1 warrior and 1 Dragon Synchro monster. So currently, Vanadium, their preferred end board is SP, Dispatter, and Barone. So this gets rid of Dispatter and Barone, and you can run over SP. That way, if they search for framing, which if they high roll, they do. It also turns that off. So the sick part of it is that it can target any dragon in any graveyard, copy its effect, and it takes that name. So what you do is, if they summon Dispatter, you summon this, you banish their Dispatter, you copy that Dispatter, you summon their own Dispatter back, and I don't think Vanadium usually can come back from that. So that's the extra. So side deck. So this is just stuff that you can search off Thrust. Feather Duster, self-explanatory. It's mainly for Labyrinth. 3 Lava Golem, because it's the classic. You go second, you Lava Golem their field, you attach Arabesque on it, you bounce it to your hand, you summon Hare or Huli, they Lava Golem them again. So this is one of the ways that you break through chairlift boards a lot, because a lot of their stuff requires chairlifts on the field, and they cannot float through Lava Golem. So this is one of those like ways that you both put a big body on their board, and you get rid of the stuff that turns off their traps. Angel Ring. This mainly was a time card. I have never actually had to use it. So Angel Ring has an effect where, well, it has one effect basically where it negates the first spell that resolves each turn by your opponent. The other effect is it can pop itself and gain 500. So in theory, you send this off as sold, you make a field that has some sort of omni negate or negation, you get this back onto one of your monsters via Hime or Renaud, and you gain 500, you win in time. But that didn't really have to be necessary. So Droll, it's for Flu, it's for FTK decks. I don't like to die to Dark World, and this is there because Dark World has offended me many times in the past. Nib. So yeah, Nib's here because there are certain matchups that it just destroys. So yeah, you have to put in there. The last two were Exodus the Encores for Pearly.
All right, thank you for the deck profile. Congrats, top 32, and hopefully to see you next time, man.
Thank you.
That's good.